Edison, we know that creating a clean energy future takes teamwork. So while we're modernizing the electric grid, the Garzas modernize their roof to be the first on their block to go solar. We're helping reduce emissions from cars and trucks for cleaner air, so kids on every corner can focus on just being kids. Together, we have all the power we need to build a brighter future for everyone. SCE. Energy for what's ahead.
All right, special thanks to Southern California Edison for being a longtime continued partner, and I started the meeting recording late. So hi, I see that you're on, so my apologies for that. When we post the video online, it'll just be kind of cut off in the beginning of your video, but I see that we have Lindsay with us now. So with no further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you all once again to our president for this year, Ms. Lindsay Horvath.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this important conversation. It's my honor and pleasure today to first welcome our Los Angeles County District Attorney, George Cascón. On December 7th, DA Cascón was sworn in as the 43rd District Attorney of Los Angeles. He's the first Latino to hold the San Francisco office and the nation's first police chief to become district attorney. In the many positions that he's held throughout his career, like assistant chief of the Los Angeles Police Department to chief of police in Mesa, Arizona, chief of police in San Francisco, and most recently, district attorney for the city and county of San Francisco, his commitment to fairness, service, and public safety has remained steadfast. Cascón is the first DA in the country to call for an end to cash bail, initiated a record clearing program for marijuana convictions following legalization, and the first to support a state law that created a stricter standard for when police can use deadly force. In addition to his criminal justice work at the local, state, and national levels, Cascón has worked on public safety initiatives in Latin America and the Middle East. After serving 2 terms as San Francisco's district attorney, Cascón returned to Los Angeles to be closer to his daughters and grandchildren in Long Beach. He entered the race for district attorney to enhance the safety and livability of Los Angeles and bring equal justice to his hometown. I've personally enjoyed developing a relationship with our now district attorney, and I'm grateful for his service and that you're here with us today. I will now turn it over to you, District Attorney Cascón.
Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Great to see you. And thank you all for providing me an opportunity to talk to you today. You know, we're rapidly on the 100 days since I was sworn in. And as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to put out do a press conference and put out a public message to what has been achieved in the last 100 days. But basically, I want to break down this into 3 buckets because I think they're very, very important. Central to not only my administration, but hopefully to the work that we're all going to be doing together. I wanted to say that, you know, the way that I'm structuring the work around the office is looking at how do we create a sustainable public safety model for all of our communities, not only today, but for the future. How do we do so in a fiscally responsible manner? Money does matter, and you know, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't realize that often the work that we do in the district attorney's office is not only costing us today by, you know, paying obviously our salaries and, you know, the operations of the office, but every decision that we make has a multi-million-dollar impact in the community, and there's always a balance in between how much safety do you get and what is the, you know, and what is the cost to get there, right? A 10-year sentence on a healthy person is about $1 million. A 10-year sentence on an unhealthy person could be multiple millions of dollars, right? That's the cost of incarceration. That doesn't include the cost of the prosecution, appellate process, you know, paying for all the other services that involve. So this is a component of our work because every dollar that we take from one part of our state budget or the local budget is a dollar that is not available for some other services. And then there's a social impact to our work. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the creation of a sustainable public safety model. What we do today has an impact today, but also has an impact sometimes for years and generations to come. So sort of evaluating the tension between safety today, safety in the future, the cost of that, both in terms of dollars and cents, and the social cost of that, I think is an important approach to our work. And I know that it's not the traditional way that prosecutors have done the work in the past. In fact, I ask sometimes people in my office, have you thought about the fiscal impact of a particular intervention? And, you know, people kind of give me a look like I have three heads and, you know, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, I mean, what we do is going to cost money. And sometimes we're not only encumbering money today for our generation, but we're encumbering money for multiple generations down the line, right? So it's important that we at least understand that the work that we do has that impact across the board. And then, you know, sometimes what may give us a relief today and provide some safety today may actually create greater insecurity in the future, especially if we're doing something that we know that is likely to increase the possibility that this person is going to commit a crime in the future. And we also should attend to that. So what have we been doing around this stuff in order to do all that? Well, first of all, we began the process now of looking to create a violence reduction model. And, you know, it's going to be a community-based model that we are putting the final touches. We're going to be working with our law enforcement partners, but also with our community in order to address not only the most recent increase in violence that a lot of it has been driven by COVID and the you know, sort of the downfall of COVID and the impacts had on our community, but more importantly, the fact that we've had an increase in consistent increase in violent crime in LA County for the last 7 or 8 years. You know, prior to 2020, we were on a 25, almost 26% increase in violent crime. And violent crime is one of the areas that I think is critically important that we address because so much comes from that. So we have been at a deficit when it comes to violent crime for the last 8 or 9 years, if you add 2020 and 2021, and it really needs to be addressed. The other thing is what do we do with the property crime and low-level offenses? And this becomes much more nuanced than violent crime at times, but nevertheless also requires that we be very thoughtful and very surgical about the work. Here we're doing a lot of work with the county's Alternatives to Incarceration office. You know, this is an office that's been funded, as many of you know, both by Measure J eventually, but, you know, with straight out general fund money to begin to provide avenues of off-ramps for people that are engaged in lower level offenses that are often driven by mental health, substance abuse, housing insecurity, food insecurity. And that work is already moving forward, and we're actually developing models to have warmed handoff for people that are doing short periods of time in jail, and rather than releasing them back out onto the street, they will be released to community-based organizations that will begin to deal with their the underlying factors. We're also working with the Office of Diversion and Reentry, that primarily really looking at, you know, mental health issues and where you have more serious cases, and also bringing on board multiple other partners, both in the community as well as governmental actors, to create the bandwidth in order to deal with the underlying causes. So much of what we see on the streets every day, sort of the unruly behavior and the evidence of mental health, substance abuse, and housing insecurity. We're also addressing our juvenile population. And again, this is an area where the way that we intervene today, probably more so than almost in any other area. The intervention today with juvenile, the right intervention can actually reduce not only the likelihood that this young person will reoffend, but quite frankly, will reduce the likelihood that they would engage in a life of criminality for the rest of their life. Or, you know, it could go either way. So we're really, you know, getting our arms around, working with the county, working with other partners here to make sure that we're using the latest that we know in terms of the science, how to intervene, what do we do with brain development, you know, what is the right trauma level of care, what is the right intervention when a young person is committing a low-level offense, and what is the right intervention when a juvenile commits a serious offense and is a threat to public safety. And then, you know, another component, we're looking at police accountability. I think that many of you knew this was a centerpiece of my campaign, but it was a centerpiece of the campaign period, right? I mean, post George Floyd especially, the issue of police accountability, especially around the area of use of force, has become a front burner issue not only for communities of color, but for every other community. And unfortunately, this is an area where there's a tremendous amount of mistrust in our community. So several things that I promised we're now moving forward, like for instance, creating a special prosecutor that will be looking at prior cases of police use of force that may not have gotten the attention that they should have gotten, creating a community-based group that is working with both victims of police violence as well as civil rights attorneys and the clinical component of the UCI Law School that is helping to review hundreds of prior uses of force cases in those areas where they believe that the use of force should have additional attention. Then that case will go to the special prosecutor. That's sort of the retroactive look. The prospective look is we're doing two things. Number one, enhancing the office capacity to do this work by adding more personnel to it, as well as beginning to explore other models that we may take to the state level to create the legislation that perhaps create the capacity for the county to actually create a separate office that would deal with police, allegations of police on duty criminality, away from the district attorney's office to remove some of the mistrust that is there. And then other things that are really sort of part and parcel of police accountability has to do with the Brady and ensuring that we have that the information that we're using in order to prosecute cases is pristine, that there's high fidelity to discovery, that when we have people in the system, whether they're police or other government actors that have evidence of racism or bias or other moral turpitude, that those things are clearly disclosed to the defense, as we're obligated to do so constitutionally. And then finally, taking a very different approach to victim services. There was actually a very extensive survey that was just published recently that was conducted, a poll that was conducted of LA County victims of violent crime and survivors of violent crime by Bender and Associates, which is, I think most of you that know Bender, they're one of the most respected polling organizations in the country. And they interview about 900 victims and survivors of violent crime in LA County specifically. And the outcomes was concerning. And the most victims of violent crime, about 60%, were extremely critical of my office and the way that we deal with or the lack of trauma-informed care for victims. And that is something that we have to address. And part of it is, quite frankly, we're terribly underfunded in that area and understaffed, and that has reflected on the work. The other component was really interesting is that about 60% of those that were polled, and the margin of error, by the way, on this, because of the number of people that they talked to, is very low. It's only about 3.25%. It's a public document you can get a hold of. Indicated that the majority of the victims are really interested in reducing the harm by engaging the assailants and the offenders in a more restorative manner. They were not necessarily looking for punishment. They want accountability, but they were more interested in rehabilitation because they wanted to make sure that this person doesn't go back and harm someone else. So very consistent with what national figures are telling about where victims are, victims of violent crime. But it's good to see a recent poll conducted in LA County of LA County population that tracks very, very consistently with what the national numbers are. And with that, Lindsay, I'm going to kind of stop now so that we can engage the group with conversation.
Very good. Well, thank you once again for being with us and for being willing to take, I hope, a few questions before your time is up today. I'm going to throw it to Councilmember Bouchard from Whittier.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much. And thank you, DA Cascón, for spending the time to be here with us. My question is about Prop 47, a proposition that, as I understand, you had a part in authoring. And my question is, in talking to my chief of police and pulling some of the data from some of the, not investigations, but some of the studies that UC Irvine and others have done, indicating that Prop 47 didn't result in a statistical increase in violent or property crime. I've received a lot of pushback on that. One of the responses being that, the belief that part of the reason it hasn't increased is because people are not reporting crime to begin with. Could you maybe address that issue and, help us understand whether you view SB 109 and Prop 47 as a success or a work in progress? Thanks so much.
No, I appreciate the question. Actually, thank you so much for actually reading the UCI report and the public policy report, because actually, you're coming from a place of informing yourself, and that it's rare. I don't get people that ask the question and actually have taken the time to look at the information. I think the problem with the position that the police is taking and saying, well, people are not reporting crime, actually it neglects the fact that the studies actually go beyond reported crime, that they're actually looking at unreported crime. Look, unreported crime has always been an issue, will continue to be. And some crimes are less reported than others. For instance, hate crimes are, the reporting of hate crimes is very low. The reporting of domestic violence is very low. But nevertheless, we know that there are statistical ways to actually look at both the reported crime and have very close estimations of what the unreported crime is. The problem with the assertion that the reason why crime didn't go up is because people are not reporting, it really neglects the fact that the studies actually account for that, and that scenario of unreporting or lack of reporting also took place before this initiative took place. So the bottom line, statistically and scientifically, there is evidence that actually crime has been reduced since Prop 47 and certainly since Prop 109. And while I believe that the work continues to be, it's a journey, I think that there are some really, have been tremendously positive byproducts of this. Number one, we have seen now millions and millions of dollars have been poured back into local communities for services, money that was not there available before. LA City alone has received probably in excess of $30 million by now of Prop 47 money for, drug intervention. Now, understanding it's not enough, right? We have a drug, mental health and a drug-induced epidemic in this country that has been on the works for many years because, we neglected the public health approach to this. But we need to continue to do this work. We need to continue to get better at it. I think that we, what you did, I commend you for, because actually, first of all, informing yourself and then asking your police. And I would recommend that you go back to your chief of police and have him read the reports actually to understand that this is not just about reported crimes, but also challenge him to ask him whether he thought that before Prop 47, everybody reported 100% of the crime. Because if it's been in the business as long as I have, we know that underreporting is pretty consistent across, has been for decades. And really, depending on the communities, there is more reporting or less reporting, depending how much you trust the police. Actually, the less trust that you have for the police, the lower the reporting is across the board for all types of crimes. So when you get into communities that are really challenged by the relationship with the police, underreporting is a huge problem. But having said that, we still know that there are ways to account for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just a reminder for anyone who has a question, you can use the raise hand function or you can let me know in the chat. I just want to follow up with a question. Last week we heard from the sheriff that he's experienced some challenges in his role because of challenges in communication with the Board of Supervisors. That breakdown in communication has caused him problems in being able to, do his job. Yet I read recently that he supports a recall effort should there be one of your leadership. And so I wonder how that might impact your ability to have a relationship with him and do your job and work together, to create public safety.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And look, I tried as much as you can to put politics aside, because I think the community didn't pay us to be bickering with one another on company time. And I feel company time for me is 24/7. I'm here to do a job, and I'm going to continue to do it. And I'm going to work not only with the sheriff, but with everybody else that we have to work. I mean, it's interesting because what happens is the sheriff put a public integrity team to investigate issues of public integrity, but unfortunately, we have seen over and over again that he seems to be targeting political enemies in the Board of Supervisors and other places. He tried to get my office to sign a memorandum of agreement to do this work jointly, and I refused. And I refused for several reasons. Number one, as a district attorney, it's really important that we maintain, even absent of what is going on the side, it's very important for my office to remain a high level of fidelity to the integrity of this work, and that this work has to be done completely free from politics. And so I didn't think it would be appropriate for my office to compromise, our work. And, the sheriff is obviously welcome to bring evidence of any crime, just like they would. And we don't have to have an MOU in order to prosecute a case that they find. But the commingling of resources, especially under the cloud of a political, almost a political persecution for some people, was not the right thing to do. And then as soon as I denied, said that I would not do that, he immediately, jump on the recall wagon. And, certainly he's free to do so. Look, when people ask me about the recall is part of the state constitution. Voters get a right to do that. They can do it 90 days after you've been in office. There were people that started the recall effort a week after I got elected. It was like the same people that lost the election, they continue. And unfortunately, we live in a time where there's some people that still that believe that Donald Trump won, right? That Biden is not the right president. And we have some people that certainly were unhappy with the outcome of this election, and that was manifested in the recall. And I understand that, and we will deal with it accordingly.
I see our past president, Lou Lamont, has a question, so I have to throw it to him next.
Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, in addition to being the past president of this terrific organization, currently I'm the chair of the LA County Commission on Alcohol and Other Drugs, and which works with the Board of Supervisors and with every city that's on this call. And my question is, we had yesterday first of all, I know that our staffs are trying to organize a visit from you to our commission. And I want to personally invite you, to come and speak with us. And yesterday, Judge Peter Espinoza of the county's Office of Diversion and Reentry that you were just talking about told us that in line with your juvenile filings, he's gotten about 50 cases so far from your office. And our commission knows that obviously the earlier we can get to youthful substance use abusers, et cetera, the better treatment can be. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? About your policy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm sure that Judge Espinoza probably told you that this is an increase, that he was not getting any of those cases before. And my goal actually is to continue to work with ODR as well as ATI to provide for diversion opportunities. And you're absolutely right, Lou, the earlier, especially when it comes to substance abuse, mental health, and sometimes a combination of those, the earlier that we can start treatment and intervention, not only the better the outcomes are, both for the individual, but for all of us. And, it's actually incredibly, safer all the way around. So we are very committed to working with ODR and with every other partner in this area. We're actually starting several pilot programs around the county already that started in March 1. With ATI, where we're having nonprofits that are actually being based at some police stations, and we'll have immediately warrant, passing of individuals. We are aggressively seeking to start a restorative justice model for juveniles, which will actually be tied hand in hand with ODR and the work of other nonprofits in this area, because as you well know, a lot of our youth are suffering from addiction and from mental health problems. And to the extent that we can do that work early, I think is better for all of us. So I'm very committed to doing the work, and I look forward actually to coming in front of your commission and discussing these issues. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Cascón, for this time today. How do you justify the lack of concern for the true cost to cities and victims by career criminals due to the ability for a criminal to commit crime knowing a revolving door exists at the jail and court system? Thank you. That's from, from Glendora.
Okay, I'm not sure that that I can justify the cost of crime, because precisely what we're trying to do is lower the cost of crime. And when it comes to victims, it's actually wrapping ourselves around victims in a way that is holistic and is trauma informed. We have just recently created the first of its kind in LA County, a victims advisory board that is composed of victims and survivors of violent crime. We are actually seeking additional funding and resources for our victim services. We are looking very aggressively at the level of interventions that we do, not only to create safe space for our victims today, but also to ensure that we do not increase the number of victims in the future by continuing to have the high levels of recidivism that we currently have. I think where there may be a disagreement is there is a segment of our population, and certainly a segment of our victim population, that believe that the best way that the system can help them is through providing for the retribution and the highest level of punishment possible. And as the district attorney, I'm not the lawyer for any one victim. I'm the lawyer for that victim, but I'm also the lawyer for the entire community, for victims of today, victims of tomorrow. And part of my work is really using the best knowledge that we have today to make sure that the interventions that we're using today are not likely to increase the likelihood of crime in the future. And one of the things, and that became very loud and clear about this recent LA County survey that was conducted, it just published less than 2 weeks ago, was that most victims in LA County felt that my office was not providing the right level of trauma-informed care. Also, most victims, by about 60%, felt that retribution was not necessarily what they were looking for. They were looking for accountability and rehabilitation. So I think, I think we need to move away from the vitriol that is being espoused by some people that, quite frankly, immediately after the election decided that this was not the outcome that they wanted. Let's look at the science. Let's look at what we're doing. Let's look at the interventions that we're providing and compare that to what we've done in the past, and compare that what is going in other parts of the country, or even places like San Francisco, where violent crime has come down significantly by approaching our work differently. To the contrary to some of those comments, I'm actually very, very concerned about how we treat our victims, make sure that we treat them with respect and we do the right thing, not only for victims of today, but potential victims of tomorrow. But that doesn't entail that we are just simply going to punish someone today just to satisfy the need or the desire for someone to have retribution today.
If we can sneak in one more question quickly, I'll throw it to Councilmember Gold.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. District Attorney, for being here today.
My pleasure.
So a bit of an anecdote and a question. Our chief of police informs us that we had an armed robbery in a parking lot in our city, and a woman and her 14-year-old were held up at gunpoint. And ultimately, it happened that an off-duty LAPD officer who was in the vicinity, he didn't engage in gunfire with the perpetrator, but he was managed to be arrested. Turns out that this perpetrator was 17 years and some months old, and your office charged him, I'm told, with grand theft person, which I'm told is the equivalent of pickpocketing. So the question to you really is, can you explain the logic of that? And what is the expectation for this particular individual? It seems to me the lesson learned is I'm going to get away with it, at least until I'm 18. So could you kind of speak to that, please?
Yeah, Julian, I think what I like to do is I like to get the case information so I can look back at it, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you and provide a public response for the entire group, because I don't want to answer not knowing the facts. I mean, you have a piece of information, which I don't doubt, by the way, but until I see the facts of the case,
Okay.
I'm not prepared to answer. So why don't we do this? Why don't you provide on the chat, you can provide me a report number, and this, what city are you with?
Beverly Hills. I don't have it with me today, but I will get
yeah,
it to you.
Yeah,
Sir.
please, yeah, give me the
I'll make sure you get it.
information, and then we will provide, the answer will be provided to the entire group, by the way.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Great.
much for your question.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. District Attorney. We appreciate
so
your
much.
time and your partnership with the California Contract Cities Association. Look forward to working with you in the days and weeks ahead. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Look forward to coming back. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
And now I have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors Chair of the Board, Hilda Solis. Supervisor Hilda L. Solis was sworn in as Los Angeles County Supervisor for the 1st District of Los Angeles County in 2014. An LA native, she earned her BA in Political Science from California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, and her, I think it's just Cal Poly Pomona for most of us, and her master's in public administration from USC. Before becoming supervisor, she served as Secretary of Labor under President Barack Obama, becoming the first Latina to serve in the United States cabinet. Over the years, Supervisor Solis has represented her communities in many facets, including serving as a Rio Hondo Community College trustee, congresswoman, and member of the California State Legislature. As supervisor, her priorities are combating homelessness, building affordable housing, expanding county services to all residents, environmental justice, and ensuring arts equity for all. Currently, she's serving as chair of the LA County Board of Supervisors. Her recent focus has been on providing equitable access to the COVID-19 vaccine in Los Angeles County. Mi amiga y mi hermana, Chair Hilda Solis.
Hello. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you for that great introduction. Sorry if I'm a little late. I've been backed up with meetings here at the county, as I know many of you are very busy as well, but just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for having me speak to the group. It's been at least, I think, a good year since I think we last met. Some of you I've seen at other meetings that we partner on, but wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. And as you know, this year I'm serving as chair of the board, and we're still in the thick of the pandemic. And I can tell you that it really has created a sense of humility for me and my staff, and I think for many of our county employees, and especially knowing that there's so much that has to be done, and what has already happened with respect to the pandemic. It's been a year now, and I want to say that it has been a hard road for recovery, and we've gotten there. And I do want to say that, you know, with the cooperation of everyone, all of our residents, making sure that we're safe, we actually were able to save lives in spite of all the negativity and the over 500,000 people that died across the country. I would say that here in one of the most populous states, we did everything we could, given the resources that we were given, to try to take care of our residents. And this is not an easy thing to deal with, because it's unprecedented. I know, as a former Secretary of Labor, I went through a recession, the Great Recession in 2009, but here, coupled with the health impact that really restricted our mobility and our economic well-being, really challenged all of us, especially here in the county. And I was very fortunate to serve as the pro tem of the board under Catherine Barger last year. So she and I, for the most part, she spent a lot of time here, and so did I. And I learned a great deal of what could work, what didn't work, and how to modify those things to try to bring that experience now before us, so that we could bridge those gaps. And we learned very quickly last year that we needed to do a better job just in our COVID testing sites, and making sure that we were accessing the appropriate resources at the points where the highest number of people were impacted, and using all of our resources, including the cooperation with you, contract cities, with our public safety officials, and all of our branches of government coming together. Could we have learned more? Did we learn more? Absolutely. And we're applying some of that technology right now in terms of how we're administering the vaccines. There's so much to talk about. And it seems like every single day is 6 months worth of work. I don't know if you feel that way, but I certainly do. And I do want to thank our governor and also our new administration, because I've seen a real dramatic change in terms of support already coming through. And just to mention, in terms of the vaccinations coming through quickly, and as even though the press and others are saying, gee, it's slow and moving, to be honest, as soon as the county received our share or portion of our vaccines, we got them out as soon as possible. So a lot of what you may have been hearing from people that, oh, we're not getting the vaccine, in part, yeah, that's true, because of there were issues nationally with respect to weather patterns and flight and all that, getting the supplies. But now that the supplies are coming in, we are rapidly getting them out. And we're not just waiting for the state government to tell us what to do. You're hearing probably about the Blue Shield, the third-party administrative plan. We are actually continuing to do what we did starting from the COVID-19 test sites, and we're rapidly pushing those out. So what we have utilized in many ways is not just going through the My Turn internet sign up process that they have established, but also working with pods. And if I can explain that a bit, it's working in partnership with our clinics, with our federally qualified clinics, as well as our partners, our union members, even our grocery stores, and actually popping up sites, even religious places, where we're having staff go out and actually contact people in the neighborhood. So we then try to stop folks from outside of our local communities that are impacted from coming in and jumping ahead of line. And we, in the last, I want to say maybe 4 weeks, have really kind of fine-tune that program in a better manner. And you have to keep in mind that we're not the only source of where these vaccines come from the county. Yes, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, I call her Dr. Fauci, has been doing a tremendous job in allocating those to different places, but she isn't the sole person. You also have the federal government, FEMA, that's distributing their vaccines, and that doesn't necessarily go through the county. You also have the state that has partnered with Kaiser. Kaiser is also getting to their membership and assisting other counties. And then you have some sources of funding, not funding, vaccines that go directly to some of these other bigger hospitals and clinics. And we don't have much say-so in terms of how that distribution is handled. Here in the 1st District, I want to tell you, my district, as you know, spans from as far as Silver Lake, downtown LA, all the way to Claremont and Pomona. We've had over 300,000 confirmed cases, over 26% of the cases countywide. That is an astronomical number. Our district and the 2nd District, that is now represented by Supervisor Holly Mitchell, have been the most impacted. And I will tell you that the county has stood up about 500 providers throughout the county to try to disperse and get information and the vaccine out as soon as possible. You don't hear about that. I don't think the news has really covered a lot of those smaller pads that we have established, and what we're doing, even working with our city, because we have MOUs with, I think, all of our cities in terms of how the Department of Public Health can interact with you. We did stand up one of the first vaccine centers in my district, and I want to thank the city of Pomona, because the Pomona Fairplex served as one of the first COVID testing sites, but now it also is serving as the vaccination site. And they also provide up to, I think it's anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 vaccinations there at that site. And again, partnering with our local cities, we've been able to also work with our public health department and go out to even smaller places. So you hear stories about seniors not being able to go to CVS or go to the big mega centers. So what we're doing, at least with my staff and with Department of Health Services, is looking at how we can identify senior housing projects and getting our mobile units. We have several mobile units in play that go out during the week, and then we can test and we can actually vaccinate people there on the spot in advance, getting them in the queue, and then making sure that we're taking care of those that are 65 and older and those that fit under the particular tier system. Already, we've been out at the Bridge Creek Apartments in West Covina. In La Puente, we were at the Garden Apartments. In Southgate, we were at Pennsylvania Square. And in the city of Bell, we were at the Oaks. It's known as the Oaks on Florence. And then we also are mapping out other senior housing facilities, as well as those projects. We did something in partnership with FEMA and the governor at Ramona Gardens. That was the first Section 8, I want to say Section 8 project, federally funded project that actually got their first doses. And we had about 500 doses that were given out there. We're looking at other places that we have to go. So keep in mind, my district is very large, and we also have to interface with the city of Los Angeles. And we've been, I think, good partners with them. I want to briefly just say for you as well that we've had some good partnerships with our schools and our educators. And we know that all of our essential workers, particularly our restaurant workers, our grocery store workers, are in need of getting that vaccine, as well as our emergency service workers. So we are now in that tier where we're providing that vaccination when we have it. We try to get it out as soon as possible. We've even set up different dates when different segments of our workforce can go out to some of our bigger pods. And if you need more information, we'll be happy to share that with you. Just as an example, I want to thank the city of Monterey Park for partnering with this county, with us, the Garvey Unified School District, and the Herald Christian Center for evacuating their school staff on campus. So there are opportunities where school sites can also serve as these pods and help to vaccinate not just the teaching staff, but also their clerical, their CSCA staff, bus drivers, and things of that nature. And I really want to acknowledge them for doing that out in the city of Pomona. I also want to thank Mayor Sandoval from the city of Pomona as well, because he's done a lot of work in helping us pop up other pods, smaller pods that have come through. And I think that's been really tremendous. I also want to give a shout out to some of the cities, Montebello, El Monte, Huntington Park, Azusa, and others for their fast effort in working with us to help provide COVID testing, as well as helping us identify places where we could quickly go in and address the needs of our community. I want to give also recognition to the city of Pico Rivera and Southgate for offering free transportation for those seniors over 65 years of age, so that they could go to the major pods, one of which was, Cal State LA, Fairplex, other places, Inglewood, and of course our LA County Department of Education, the superintendent's office there, where they're also administering shots. All of that means something. And I want to say that one thing I learned quickly is that people really need to have access, and either in their community or they need to have some assistance through transit efforts. So I'm hoping that some of our bus transit, our local providers, will help assist us when we have a need where we need to get people in and out quickly into these vaccine pods, which can be very helpful. We've, through our efforts, secured some TAP cards also to use for Metro bus service, as well as the rail service to get to these pods. And we're making those available to our hard-pressed areas, because I know our constituents, many of them very much rely on the bus transit system. Just want to tell you that with the governor rolling out his whole objective now to focus in on the 40% highest impacted communities, the County of Los Angeles has been doing that from the get-go. We've actually, I think, gone beyond that. We're really looking at vaccinating more than 60%, giving those vaccines to those people that are most impacted. And many of them reside in the first district, East LA, Southeast LA, San Gabriel Valley, and as far east as Pomona. So that's really, I think, very critical for us. Want to thank folks from the Southgate and the Southeast areas for working with us. Some of you may know I recently sent a letter to the governor's office and to Cal OES, as well as the Biden administration, asking them to have their mobile units that they placed out here through Cal State LA. There are only 2 of them, but they go around different parts of our hard-pressed areas. And we were able to secure their ability to service people in the Southgate area. And they've already, I think, vaccinated over 2,700 people. And that was just in 1 week. And yesterday, the governor went and visited that particular area. And I want to thank people from that surrounding area, including Bell and all of our partners that have really stepped up to the plate, and Southgate as well, for being our host, because we've done many, many activities with a lot of our contract cities, whether it's distributing food with our LA Regional Food Bank. They're going to be celebrating their 100th regional food distribution, and we're hoping to have it in the 1st district, since we've been probably one of the biggest sponsors and the most neediest district in the entire county. So I just want to really give thanks to them and to all our partners. We've been able to couple our relationships with other private foundations that have helped us provide diapers and wipes for infants, for babies when they come up to the drive-ups to receive food. We can also help provide formula for their families, and that's something that's an addition to what we've been seeing and doing over the last couple of weeks. We have still a lot more to do. Could we do better? Absolutely. Could we use more cooperation and partnership? I'm asking, please, for many of you to consider helping us in that way. It's hard to get to every city, but if we can coordinate and you know where we're going to be, the county or any of our other partners in passing out and providing the vaccine, I think that could be most helpful. And telling people to take advantage of the vaccine. Right now, there's a lot of back and forth about which one is more potent. All 3 of them, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson, will do the trick. The main thing is they save lives. And you don't want to end up, we don't want to see our residents end up in the ICU unit and back up our system again. And I just want to remind people that right now, as we're going to be going through springtime, we're going to be seeing people on vacation, wanting to get out. We're going to go through Passover and Easter and all that. I would hope that people would continue to adhere to what Dr. Fauci is saying, what the CDC is saying, and what Dr. Barbara Ferrer has been saying, and that is to continue to wear your mask. If you can double mask, double mask. Keep your families, your visitations with other people that don't live in your household to a minimum if you can. And again, it's better to be outdoors. And if you do have events, keep your distance and use that mask. I think we've done some heroic things here in the county, and we have not been able to do it alone. We did it because your public, your residents have listened and heeded our words. So we want to continue to be transparent with you in many ways that we can. We want to see our children get back into schools. We want to know that people are going to be safe and that our economy comes back. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. We're still doing a lot with respect to homelessness. We know that those folks also have to get tested and vaccinated. They need to get their vaccine, as well as helping to continue to push out assistance through Measure H. And that, as well as utilizing the state and federal monies, mostly the state money, to help purchase out and lease hotels, motels, and then now creating a new project that is more permanent, known as Home Key. And I do want to thank our cities of Baldwin Park and the City of Commerce for stepping up, as well as Monterey Park and other cities that have come to help us address this issue of homelessness. So really do want to thank everyone, and especially a shout out to my own city where I live, El Monte, that has just been really incredibly supportive. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions from you all, because I know we do have opportunity to do that. Thank you again for having me here with you.
You know so much about what's going on in the cities already. That's so impressive and so awesome for our organization to know how checked in you are to the work that we're doing. A couple of questions have come up in the chat. The first is a request for some mobile unit vaccines for seniors in Irwindale. And thank you for your support. Okay. Yes. Also, I want to throw it to Mark Mitchell, who has a question about school meals.
Hi, Supervisor Solis. Great to see you. Hi. And thanks for all the great work that you're doing for the county. Just wanted to follow up on some of the comments you made in and around the food insecurities. We did get some great news out of Washington, D.C. with USDA. Secretary Vilsack in the last 2 days has approved the extension of meals to go into the summer. And so now we actually have solidified some good things there for our kids with regards to food, and just wanted you to touch upon how that will overlay with some of the things that you're seeing, you alluded to with some of the food banks, and how it's only going to enhance our situation as we move into the summer.
Right. Well, I would say to you that, originally during the pandemic, I put a motion forward to actually put about 13, I think it was 13 million, so that we could secure enough funding to pay the LA Regional Food Bank and all our other suppliers so that we could have sufficient funding. Now with this second trough of money that's coming through that I hope the president will sign in a matter of hours, I hope, that we'll be able to receive more money and be able to hold more of these regional food banks in concert with our cities and also with our school districts if necessary. So I realize that I know that some of our schools were really stressed because they didn't have sufficient support for that, to offer that. And LA Unified did their grab and go, as you know, and spent a lot of money. And I hope that they're going to be made whole by the federal government. But I know we have smaller districts that really couldn't even do that. They only had maybe one day where they could actually address that issue. So we want to couple with you. I think I would ask you to work with my office. Elise Weinberg, who's also on this call, can help you to navigate and provide assistance where needed. That absolutely is going to continue because we're not out of this yet. I don't think we're going to see full recovery in terms of economic recovery, maybe until the first of the year fully, where everyone's going to get back to work. So we know we're going to have families that are not going to have a place to go to work. They're going to be home with their kids, and we're going to have to offer more support to them. And that's where I think the county can really be helpful too. So there's a number, 211. That is our county assistance number. Please write it down. It's easy. You can ask for referrals to any of our departments, and especially for food insecurity, they can direct you to the appropriate offices, as well as for any assistance that families might need. Because there's a lot of families, right, young children that could use additional assistance through our Department of Social Services. And they have also upped their ante in terms of providing more food for assistance, for food assistance in particular. And I don't want people to be afraid to call. And if you have trouble navigating or people do, please have them call us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or use the raise hand function to get in the queue. One question I wanted to offer Chair Solis is our association had some questions as the ballot measure that came up in the county with regard to funding for services and as it related to public safety, that ballot measure came up. Obviously it passed. We had some questions around that. Can you talk a little bit about how the ATI plan is going to be implemented and what we can expect to see in our communities in terms of bolstering public safety through services?
Right. Let me just go back a little bit so people understand the process here. So the County Board of Supervisors put Measure J on the ballot, and it passed by, some of you may know, by 58% of the voters that supported the measure. The measure will now require the county to set aside a minimum of 10%, which is primarily projected to be around $300 to $400 million of unrestricted. That means that that's NCC money. That means it's not taking it from a department. It's not taking it from the sheriff. It's not taking it from health or anything like that, or public works. It's actually what we call, it's general fund money. And it's 10%. So 10% of that would be roughly around $300 to $400 million of unrestricted money. And we've allowed in the measure, there's certain language that's been placed there that says that it will be flexible enough to allow for a 3-year lead up. So if we don't get to say the 10% this year because of the pandemic and we just don't have the money, then this gives us time to build up to say perhaps getting to the 300 million mark. So there's a lot of things at play here. What I will say that just to give you an idea, the county overall, because of the pandemic and because we saw low sales tax, property tax, and everything else, fees and all that, as you know, and you've been impacted by it too, your cities, we know that many of our departments had to give us budgets as well. So they were told to cut back anywhere from 5 to 8% of their budget. So we have a lot of our departments that are already kind of, behind in the red on certain things. So we know that the use of the funding has to be given to those items that are known as non-carceral, right? Non-carceral, non-law enforcement. But what that means is, it means funding investments, say in parks after dark, youth justice programs, employment training programs for young people, alternatives to incarceration, which is being led now, that IT team that you just described, they are coming up with ideas of what kinds of things to fund. Let me just give you an idea. There's a board that's been created based out of the measure, 17-member board. It's called Reimagine LA Advisory Committee. And it has a whole slew of people from labor, community, county stakeholders, including folks that we're going to help to develop and discuss these priorities. And all of that then will come back to the board.
But it does have
I don't know.
Sorry for that interruption. Go ahead.
Okay, I also want to mention that some of the things that can be funded that will work towards providing restorative justice and reimagining LA could be efforts that I'm currently involved in, and that is restoring, creating what we call restorative care village. And that is placement for people that are coming out of incarceration or that have mental health illnesses that would end up in jail, putting them in recuperative care beds that would be at LACUSC. We are currently developing that now. That fits in, I think, very, purposefully in terms of who is identified in the population to be able to get these services. So we're really trying to keep people out of jail and getting them into services they need. And one way is helping to provide recuperative care, mental health, wraparound services on a case management basis, and then also helping to build out interim shelters for people. And I want to say that because one of the things that I did, and you may have read about it in the paper, is there was an old parking lot we were going to use as more of a holding spot as they were going to be tearing down Men's Central Jail. And since that was in my first district, I decided to use that property to reconstruct and put in units of housing, 232 units of interim housing that can become permanent housing for people that are coming out of, say, Men's Central Jail, and they normally would be homeless. Instead of being on the street and committing other crimes, they would be able to go in to this facility, get wraparound services, 3 meals. They would get the treatment that they need. They would get opportunities for jobs. They would get all the assistance that's necessary, but in an area that is away from, say, Skid Row. So that's some of the ways that you can use, I believe, some of these monies and resources and really help invest in our community-based organizations by helping the Volunteers of America, for example, who do a lot of work dealing with these populations, helping to lift up some of those groups and giving them support. But everything has to be accounted for. We should have metrics to make sure that we're giving the funding out for the right reasons to the right folks, and we're actually making progress in turning that around.
All right. I don't see any other questions, but we really want to thank you for being with us today, for being such a strong partner with Contract Cities, and for always being open to conversation and staying in touch with us. If there are priority issues you're working on, I hope you'll turn to us in partnership so we can work together and collaboratively. That's our goal. And we wish you the best of luck in your term as chair and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And we really rely on your services as well. So we want to continue to partner with you. So thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
Supervisor.
Thank you.
Marcel, I will turn it over to you.
So I don't really have much to add. I want to thank you all for joining us. I will say next Thursday, same time, noon, from noon to 1, we will have a couple of our favorites. Not that they're not all our favorites, all the supervisors, but we will have Supervisors Hahn and Supervisors Barger join us next week to give us their updates on their work in the county and how it's impacting our cities. They've been tremendous sponsors, so please join us next week as we round the corner and go into our 3rd week of 4. And then finally in our 4th week, we'll have the CEO, the new CEO of the county, and then we're going to have one more guest that I believe Sheila Kuehl is going to, Supervisor Kuehl is going to record a message for us because she wasn't able to make it. So we look forward to having her there, and I have nothing else. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you next week. And we appreciate your continued engagement and participation in California Contract Cities Association. If there's anything we can be doing to better support you and your city, please do let us know. And have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.